So I thought I would start off walking through the back garden, and as you can see, it's a cooler day today. There's dew on the ground. You can hopefully hear the birds tweeting, and it is lovely. It's nice and fresh, and it's really it's the country. I just love being in the country, and I'm sure most people do because of the fresh air. When I say peace and quiet, I suppose I mean that literally, but also the space to think and work. Actually, I come here to concentrate and work, and I find that there are less distractions when you're in a city or in a built-up place. There's so much more to distract you. Noise, other people walking by. I suppose it's things moving and making noise that is so distracting. But this, I'm sure, my experience, it all takes place in your subconscious and conscious. And but what I've noticed is that when you are in a quieter place, you are able, if your job requires you to think and problem solve, the environment's very important. I'm not saying that if you are in a city or a busy built-up place, I'm not saying that you can't concentrate, but I do find in the country where there are many less people, and there's obviously no buildings and much less noise. Saying that though, around here, I don't know if the microphone is picking up the birds, but there is a lot of bird song, and you get the odd rumble from aircraft high up above, but it's not very loud, and it's quite pleasant. Anyway, I just thought I'd start this video with a view of this lovely countryside. So good morning everyone, and I showed you the intro. It's just of the countryside. I don't know. I hope that people find it interesting. I find it sort of relaxing, and I like the green vegetation, and the sight of trees and green things that grow. But so it's early again. I haven't seen hair and makeup as usual, and but I was going through a list of all the subjects that I'm wanting to chat about, and as I was going through them, I thought, I want to talk about each one of these, and I should plan the talk and do each one individually over time. And then I thought, why don't I just stick my face in front of camera and once again talk to camera? And of course I've brought my coffee with me, and I thought what I could do is a walk and talk, and hopefully I can put together something half interesting. And what I have found with the walks and talks, it must be because I'm walking, and there's more oxygen, blood rushing through my body, so it feels to help me think. And these days, I maybe it's getting a little bit older, and my brain doesn't want to think as much anymore. Or maybe I'm just lazy. and I can't rule that out as a possibility. But yeah, there are so many things I want to talk about. Elon Musk again is at the forefront of my mind, mainly because he is a world leader in what he does, actually, and I find the businesses that he operates in, are super interesting to someone like me. The war in Ukraine is obviously, so concerning, and it's a real worry in the context of geopolitics and the global economy. It's very worrying. Then technology, and I keep mentioning AI. And the reason I keep mentioning AI is because it's so important and it's such a big deal in our world. And then we have, the last 2 years of COVID, and what that has done, what that has meant. And for me personally, I find the origin of COVID unbelievable. So for someone like me, it makes the world interesting, and that sounds like that I might appreciate chaos or like chaos and disasters and catastrophes. I don't, but in the context of COVID, because I believe very much it was man-made, I find that interesting. But natural things like climate change, population growth, the changing face of employment around the world, and my constant thoughts about how society is changing, and in turn, how culture has changed, is changing, and what it means for the future. So I'm really wanting to combine all this thought process, these thoughts around these big ticket topics that really are fundamental to our everyday existence, and to make a cohesive points that are easy to understand, that anyone could understand, and in doing that, creating this framework of reference in which I'm able to chat about this stuff, but also other people can relate to it, so that so it can encourage them to think about this stuff also. So perhaps I've said that before, or something similar to it. So I'm explaining once again, and also trying to finish this coffee so we can go for a walk down here. Because I'm curious to see where this conversation goes to. One of the other things is COVID. It really, and because of my experience posting videos, it really brought my attention to the real aspect of censorship, the real situation of censorship, even in the West. Once again, when I say the West, I mean North America, Europe, Israel, New Zealand, Australia. So, what does censorship mean? Right, so I've said that word there, and instantly I can feel my brain wanting to have a chat about censorship. But I thought to myself just then, why don't I have a think around and see if I can drop some other topics that I can hopefully link it all together. So we have Elon Musk, Twitter, censorship, climate change, post-COVID, technology, AI, Ukraine, war, Putin, Joe Biden, Boris Johnson, Marine Le Pen, Macron. Oh, Macron. I mean, do people really trust that guy? Seriously, Macron, would you trust him? Would you trust him to tell you the truth? Or, I mean, would you trust him to do his job? My goodness. Boris Johnson, would you trust him to do his job? Actually, I am not a Boris Johnson fan, but hopefully I'm able to offer an unbiased opinion. He definitely has qualities and skills. He's probably great to have a conversation with and have a beer with and debate stuff with. As a human being, he's probably a decent guy, actually. Is he the right person to run a country like the UK? Actually, bizarre as it seems, I think he is a very good figurehead stroke puppet. But I mean that in the most pleasant way. I don't mean that derogatory, actually. Because I think his personal qualities, and I'm hoping the real person he is, outweighs the stuff that he doesn't do too well, like tell fibs in Parliament. But you know, he had parties during lockdown, but so did a lot of other people. And once again, that is very telling. It's very informative of, the COVID nightmare horror that was. Now, I mean, I say was in the West, UK, North America, Australia, New Zealand, Israel. It's all over. Yeah, I mean, it's over. Well, it's over as far as the government is concerned, because even though in the UK we have the highest rates of COVID ever, we have absolutely no restrictions or policy right now about it. Not zero. We've got the highest recorded numbers of people with COVID, and yet the lowest number of restrictions. I mean, you could not make that up. You couldn't make it up. I mean, it just brings a laugh and a smile to my face. That so many people were duped. Anyway, I can feel myself want to say a few things about COVID, and then I think, Stephen, you must shut up. It's so dull, and it's so bad, and we just don't want to hear it anymore. And I agree. What's happening in China? So the West decides COVID doesn't exist anymore, and China decides it does. But I think China has some underlying agenda there that they are employing, and they want to squeeze every drop of possible benefit out of this man-made virus as they can, to the detriment of their people. And that's what's happening over there. Okay, so let's get back to this. Now, I'm aware that well, actually, it's not that unstructured. There is a sort of structure to this walk and talk. So what point am I wanting to make in this video? So I think the general point is about the state of the world that we live in. Now, what most people might be aware of, actually, but most people, even with the awareness, they forget it, which defaults them believing what the news media says. Now, if in the news media a news piece is being reported about trade figures or an achievement from an athlete, or something that doesn't really impact world security or or military capabilities around. Basically, something that hasn't got something to do with the adults. The news is probably telling the truth. So that's perhaps, at least half of the news. So at least half of the news you will get, this is in the mainstream media, a lot of truth. Now, during COVID, I would probably say that figure was more like 90%. No, sorry, 10%. During COVID, I would say the news media was pumping out nothing but propaganda to serve an agenda. But today, post-COVID, the news contains 50% of stuff that is truthful, but it's not really, that important stuff. It's more, what's Prince Harry doing? And, what else has he said that's astonishing and intriguing people? And I quite like Harry and Meg's. I don't have a problem with those two, nor Will and Kate. I think they're very good. Obviously the Queen's very nice, she's very good. And I like Charles and Camilla. So there you go, I'm not such a bad person. I like all those people. Should the UK have the monarchy? Do you know, that's a big one, but I don't think it's that important really. And so I find myself not really bothered about it, because I myself could arrive at the pros and the benefits and the possible negatives of a royal family. And my hunch is that the positives are probably outweigh the negatives. So that's where I'd probably fall down on the royal family. Okay, but back to this changing world that we live in. For me, for a while now, the last 10 years, I would say, you've got to remember that, guys don't really grow up until they're about 35. Up to the age of 35, a guy, is basically a big child. In fact, I would argue that children are probably better behaved than young men in their 20s. And yeah, I would probably say that. Now, in business, most certainly, a guy does not smell the coffee until he's about 35. And one of the reasons for that is you just haven't lived it long enough, or you just don't have enough work experience. So, it's quite easy to arrive at that conclusion. How on earth can a businessman be any good at what they are doing, if they are 25 years old, because they've only been in business for 5 years, if that, and it's just not long enough to pick up work experience. So this is why guys, men, around the age of 35, start to be good at what they do. I suppose I'm talking about my field, which is, waffling on about business and administration, things like that. Yes, of course, there will be, work, employment that is best done by younger people. I'm generalising to make a point. So I'm talking about business decisions, the law, paying taxes, recruiting people, managing people. All this stuff is done much better by someone with correct work experience, and by someone that has learned how to take wider views of the context that they are in. Anyway, I'm going down a path there that I don't really want to go down, so I will come back to this changing world that we live in. Now, so let's go back to the headings. Artificial intelligence, Elon Musk, climate change, high technology. I suppose that's covered by artificial intelligence. No, high technology, artificial intelligence is part of high technology. I keep wanting to say climate change and population growth, because these are huge factors. And then my thoughts take me straight to banking and Bitcoin. There we go. I knew I was missing one big heading out of all the headings I was thinking of there. Bitcoin. So often I find myself in discussion about finances, profit margins, Bitcoin, investment, new technology. In fact, all day long, that is probably all that I do think about, actually. What new companies are doing well, what their potential is, how much profit they might make. Personally, I'm less bothered about how much profit they are making. I'm more bothered about how cool they are and how great their products and services are, and business sustainability. That's my thing. Yeah. So let's get back to where I'm wanting to get to. Today I'm wanting to make some general points about state of the world, state of business in this world that we live in. And this is why these headings like climate change, population growth, Ukraine war, COVID, macroeconomics, world politics, all these words describe the backdrop to everything to do with business, really. Now, okay, I do pick huge subjects to chat about, and I'm trying to land a point within 30 minutes or sooner. And some of these videos go on a little bit, and I do realize as I'm talking about them that it's tricky. Perhaps if I preface these talks, did some preparation, it might be better. I am aware of that. Okay, so let's get back. Right. Money. Now, remember, in previous videos, I have explained that for a money, so a monetary system or a currency to work, you need two things in particular. Number one, a lot of people, i.e. the demand for it, the demand for a medium of exchange. And number two, the ability to force the use of it. Now that is the only thing you need for a currency to work. Now if you look at the Japanese yen, the American dollar, the British pound, the European euro, those rules apply, and they are the reasons why those currencies are in place today. There's no other reason those currencies are in place. So let's go back to that. How are they in place? The issuers of that currency have, number one, a lot of customers, a lot of people that need that want money. Their need for a medium of exchange. And number two, they have the ability to force the use of it. So what I've just explained there is how money works. Now, in my work experience, it has been very interesting when I've come across economists with PhDs, and when I have explained that to them, some of them haven't grasped, that simple sentence construction, or they've retorted with something that means they don't understand, or they disagree. But the ones that disagree, weeks or days later, they've come back to me and said, "Oh my goodness, Stephen, you're right, and I've never seen this really." And they have a PhD in, economics and politics, that sort of thing. And that really told me that It told me many things. One of the things it confirmed is that the general public are lied to. Not just about, big boy stuff, but many, many things about the world that we live in. Now, that's not necessarily all bad. You can't spill the beans and tell everyone everything the whole time, because if you did, you'd probably end up in decision-making paralysis, and everybody would be confused and would be quabbling about everything. For this world to work, we do need people to just get on and do a job. We can't have people debating everything the whole time. That doesn't work. But where a currency comes from, why it exists and why we use it, that is subject material for civil wars. It really is. And the only defense I can think of is that it's probably the best of a lot of bad options. It's the least worst option to have the monetary systems that we have on Earth today. And that's why we have them. It's as simple as that. So then we have Bitcoin. I mean, wow, what a thing that is. I remember looking at Bitcoin when it was released, when it was about $1, and I thought to myself, wow, what will they think of next? This is very interesting, and but it will not work. And I wish I'd bought $100 worth or $200 worth. But at that time, I thought that was a waste of money. So there you go. That's how good I am. Or that's what lack of insider information I have. There you go. Because I bet you, even at $1, somebody thought or knew that this was going to fly. And it would be so interesting if those people came forward and explained why they knew it was going to fly, because I think you'd be astonished at the answer. Anyway, so we have Bitcoin, we have monetary systems, we have NFTs. My goodness, NFTs. Do you know, one of the best explanations of NFTs that I've heard was actually presented by the BBC, and I think it was a piece in the BBC's Woman's Hour, and it was actually some business ladies that were explaining what NFTs are, and it is the best 15-minute, 12-minute discussion piece I've heard on NFTs and cryptos. It's absolutely brilliant. The amazing, and it's women explaining it. Absolutely is brilliant. Anyway, I have to say at this point, I still view Bitcoin and all the cryptos and NFTs largely as a pyramid scheme. It is a pyramid scheme that is built on some very clever technology. So the technology is great. In theory, it's very good. It's very clever. The technology is great. The methodology and the ideology around cryptos, NFTs, and is super as well. But what they really are today, right now, are pyramid schemes. And pyramid schemes are great if you get in early and you sell at the top. And that is exactly what's working right now, how it works right now. Although Bitcoin is jolly good at, it's a helpful tool to enable money laundering and transferring money around the world. It is good at that. But that is one reason why its days, I believe, are numbered. So there you go, I've said it. Anyway, but whilst whilst the sunshine is growing, those that have insider information and those that have built the exchanges, they will make hay whilst the sun shines. And of course it will be the general public at the end of the day that are holding those digital tokens of value that will pay for it all. The guys on the inside, the investment banks, they're not going to lose. They're just going to take the money from the investor, the general public, and that's how it will unpack. So that's interesting. Okay, so let's get back to what's happening in the world with respect to technology, jobs, climate change, population growth. Okay, I believe climate change is real, and I believe that man has impacted Earth's natural. Climate change is natural anyway, but I really do believe that man has sped up or impacted the natural occurrence of climate change. So today on planet Earth we have a situation, we have a natural situation that has been impacted by man burning fossil fuels. And there are consequences, and those consequences we have not yet fully realized, but these consequences on the whole are probably not going to be good for human civilization on Earth as a whole. So that's how serious climate change is. And all the clever scientists around the world, I think today, even the non-believers, and even the people that want to argue against it for the sake of arguing, I think they all realise deep down that man has impacted climate change, our climate, and there are negative consequences. So what that means is that the clever people have all got together, they've advised all the dominant world governments, and basically that message has been: we need to burn less fossil fuels. We need to burn less hydrocarbons. And anyone with half a brain and even a bad education is going to very quickly come to the conclusion, yes, we do. And at the same time, we're actually consuming too many raw materials also, because that data also comes through. What that means is that we're digging too much stuff out the ground. We're growing too much stuff. We're using too much stuff on planet Earth to feed, clothe and entertain human beings on Earth. And when you have a finite resource like oil, like rare materials in the ground, finite means that one day they run out. And 8 billion people is a lot of mouths to feed. And we know that world population projections go a little bit higher than 8 billion. But after 8 billion, but even if they go up and come down, we still probably have too many people on Earth for indefinite sustainability. Now this is a horrible thing to say, because people will say, Stephen, we cannot control, people having children. It's their right. Now that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we have too many people on Earth. And the number of people on Earth we need to take a view on as a global community, because we all have a vested interest in that decision making. And it won't be us that take the brunt of it. It will be our grandchildren that get it right in the arse. They will suffer for the lack of action that we take today in the 2020s. Climate change is going to bring problems. Right, Right, because human beings are clever folks and we're good at designing new cars, electric cars, we are very good at developing technology. What this means is that we need to dig more stuff out of the ground and we need more energy, and energy is the big tomato in the room. As it turns out, we're using more energy, not less. Even though our homes are becoming more energy efficient, at the same time we want more energy. The biggest one is our electric vehicles. The electric car in your driveway uses a lot of power, a lot of electricity that has to come from somewhere. So even though we are saving and using less electricity in our devices and in our home applications, all that is quickly nullified by the use of our electric cars. Now, so do I think we should stop electric cars? Absolutely not. I'm a big fan of electric cars, and I have the pleasure of driving one. I think they are super, and the reason that I think that we need to go electric is because continuing with petrol cars is a worse outcome. But I'm not naive to the fact that those rechargeable batteries need to come from somewhere, and they need to come from the ground. So we have to find areas on planet Earth that have these raw materials, and we need to dig them out of the ground, and we know they're finite. But 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. The electric vehicle still is a positive over petrol cars because of the hydrocarbon footprint. But we do pick up the problem with digging the natural resources out of the ground that we need to build these new cars. Straight away, a bit of a side thing here. Recycling, that's why recycling is so important and is such a cool industry. Because recycling could make the difference between sustainability and not. And it just makes absolute clear sense to anyone with half a brain. So we should be highly focused on renewable energy and recycling. These things should be at the top of any government's industrial view and economy. These things should be massively promoted. And also we should be massively promoting and funding science exploration, technology. Because if we can create a more sustainable energy method or identify new methodology that takes existing technology and makes it more efficient, this would be marvelous. We do need these things right there. Let's go right there. Renewable energy, recycling, new forms or more efficient energy production systems. You can see that these things are no-brainers for a government to think about and fully support. The buy-in there is so low that we should all buy in. And these are great industries to get into. So that's my fluffy, pleasant point there. But in the meantime, what is going to happen on the world stage? What is going to happen? Now, I remember years ago listening to people and seeing news pieces about in the coming decades we're only going to have jobs for about half of the Earth's population. And I think this was in the context of the world's population being about 8 billion, and half of those people being at an age that can work, and only 50% of those there'll be employment for, which means an awful lot of people are just sitting around the place, either being young and playing, or being old and, you know, making a nuisance of themselves. I'm thinking of my dad there, actually. But in actual fact, they're not making a nuisance of themselves. You know, they are enjoying the retirement, and they have every right to do so, to the best, you know, quality of life also, because that's the deal I think society should offer people. You know, we should be there to care for one another, and yeah, it is a thing. It's a real conundrum that we're in. Right, so at that point, let me just focus on some positives. Right, the positives are that we are human beings, and you know, we are clever people, and most of us are nice people, actually, believe it or not, even though crime is unbelievably much higher than the general public realise. But on the whole, people are decent. Unfortunately, people who are not decent and who take up lives of crime, they do cause a disproportionate amount of trouble for other people. And that is a subject all by itself. You know, what do we do with troublesome people? What do we do with criminals whose criminal activity is incredibly antisocial and does nothing but cause heartache for others? That's a different subject. Maybe I'll touch on it in this video. I don't know. Okay. The positives are we have technology and we have come a long way. So this year is 2022. If we go back to 2022, 100 years ago, life on Earth looks like, you know, caveman. Just look at what they had back then compared to what we have today. These are two separate worlds, and it's only 100 years that separate them. In fact, I would argue that everything that we see today is a result of post-Second World War. It's from the 1950s. And today's technology and environment we live in was spearheaded by what America did in the 1950s. I mean, I have to say right there, the American dream and the United States of America single-handedly stuck a rocket on civilization on planet Earth. And today we have the fruits of that. You are planet Earth today. Doesn't matter where you are in this world. You have been affected by US government policy and its American dream. So America has, yeah, a lot to answer to, a lot of good stuff that's worth, you know, looking at. Anyway, it also emphasizes the rate of change and how things have changed, and just how spectacular things can change in a short period of time. In fact, I would go as far as go back to 2012, right? 2012, that's only 10 years ago. I would say that today we are light years ahead of 2012. I mean, the electric vehicle really is less than 10 years old. You know, it was only very early adopters really that had them, but the electric vehicle 10 years ago was a very novel thing that no one really had. Look at it today, it's mainstream. It still is only about 1-2% of the entire car fleet on the road, but that will become 5%, 10% in no time, in the next 2 years actually. Things really are moving there. Anyway, so we live in a world today where technology has a massive impact on society and culture. I think I've mentioned this in another video. And so where in the past we had this American dream type of capitalism where we were all driven by creating a product or service, delivering it well, building healthy profit margins, and buying ourselves nice quality of lives. Where that was more a fair fight, more of an even playing field, going back to the 80s, 90s and the noughties, even though we could argue it's never been a plain even playing field. Today we are heading towards technology itself is pushing us rather than policy, but I would say that policy is still the main driver. Now, and the reason we are becoming more policy driven is because technology is too fast for us to actually control. The marketplace changes so rapidly. Those rapid changes are removing the financial viability from operations, because it's so difficult for a company to retool to make the new thing that in 6 months will be obsolete anyway. So this is why policy is creeping in. So policy formation and technology, culture, society being policy driven, even though it might seem like the way forward, because you could argue that nice human beings are going to make the right decisions for human beings. But in my experience and what I'm seeing is that unfortunately that is not the case, because the human being is the problem. Human beings are not reliable. And it has been illustrated to me, and I think many other people will agree with me, is you can take any decent human being who is already working inside an organization, and let's say they have, an income that allows them to live okay. They can feed themselves or their family and children, but they don't have a super yacht or a speedboat, that they just have a house and a car and a job and a quality of life that anyone would consider as pretty okay. Right, so you take that well-meaning, decent person and you stick them in a boardroom and you say to them, we're going to promote you and give you some company shares. Now, if you take this company in a direction that we would like you to take it in, and the value of this company is probably going to 3 times, 10 times very quickly. So the shares that we are going to give you, they are maybe worth £50,000 right now, are going to be worth 10 times that in a short period of time. And if everything goes well and you continue to drag this company in the direction that we want it to go in, these shares are going to be 100 times. And so the guy thinks, way, that is great. I'm being given $50,000 worth of incentive right now, but I'm actually being given much more as long as I do my job well and serve my board of directors or my board of executives or my board of investors. And so this decent person takes the reins and delivers a few nice speeches to the workforce and tells everyone that he's going to do a great job and look after them and their futures. And for the next week or two, everything's great. He's loving it. He's told his wife or his mates that he's been promoted and he's now the CEO or the acting president or some other fancy title that basically means they're a whipping boy. So this well-meaning person has a board meeting at the end of month 1, and the investors, the board of directors, the shareholders, they sit him down and they say, hey, look, John, you're doing a great job. We are liking it a lot. But we have an idea for you. And this idea is we want you to merge this business with another company, a competitor. And out the blue, the newly appointed president of this company thinks, gosh, I never saw that one coming. I've always viewed the competitor as our competitor, and all of a sudden in this board meeting I'm now being told to think about a merger out of thin air. And he says, well, because you're asking me to, of course I'm going to look at it, but what's the benefit to me? Well, what's the benefit to the business? What's the benefit, to the workforce? What's the benefit to me? And the board turn round, or sometimes it's the chairman, will say, well, the benefit to us is that straight away our share price is going to treble overnight at just the rumour that we might merge. The benefit to our employees is that their jobs are secure and we're going to get some new machinery. And the benefit to the company as we go into the future is that we're going to be bigger, better and stronger, and we will be more able to compete against our other competitors. Now, he thinks, what is there not to like about this position I find myself in? So he calls an employee meeting and he says, hey guys, some changes are coming. We're in a new technological age. I've been asked to take this company into the 2020s, the next decade, and the clever guys that I meet with have told me that we might structurally change the organization, but I can't tell you any more right now, but I just want everyone to know that things are going to be great. Anyway, a month later, and so this is just 2 months, he goes to the meeting, the monthly meeting, and they say, right, not only have we been thinking about this, we want to do this, and we want to do it next week. And not only do we want to do it next week, we've already cut the deal. All you have to do is rock up to the meeting and sign the paperwork, and that is it. And then you can go back to the workforce and tell them that you single-handedly have made a massive decision on behalf of everyone, and it's to secure the future of the company. And by the way, we told you that your shares are going to be 3 times. It's looking like they're going to be worth 5 times. And so John thinks, wow, 2 months in, and I've increased the value of this company at least 3 times, and I haven't really done anything apart from do as my masters tell me. Okay, now I don't know if you can see where this tale, it's not actually a tale, this is so close to the truth you wouldn't believe it. So I've just covered 2 months. Month 3, the deal is done. This company has merged with a competitor. But what has happened overnight, all of a sudden, is that John has been told, it's unforeseen, but 30% of our workers here, we actually don't need them, they are redundant. And John said, hey, I wasn't told any of this 2 months ago. And they said, well, we didn't know either. It's just that our merged partner has much better infrastructure and scale, and we have a duplicate capability, and so these jobs are redundant because we just don't need 30% of our workforce, and we're not breaking any laws, and we need to let them go. And you're the CEO stroke president, it's your job to fire them, and we have a redundancy package for them, they should be fine, so off you go and do that. And so John does, and it leaves a sour taste in his mouth, and these sour tastes in his mouth, to be honest, they just continue. Making 30% of the people redundant, that's just the first in several measures that changed the face of this organization. And the original story that the merger would make them bigger, stronger and better with job security, all of it becomes unrealized. Because in actual fact, another month down the line, the entire operation is being scaled down and is actually being transferred over to the merged company's operations base, and this is how it works. Now, so what we have here is an example of, well, it's actually a real example of what capitalism can look like to the detriment of everyone. Because before that merger, both companies were experiencing price control because of competition. Now, the second that these two companies got together, and one was the largest in the space, prices actually went up by 10% overnight. And the projections were that the prices would actually go up by 50% within the following months, simply because the remaining competition simply wasn't able to penetrate this new market space that these two companies merging had actually created. So look at the narrative, look at what was said. What was said was, we, the investors, want you to take this company forward, making it bigger, better, stronger, more secure. And the exact opposite was achieved. The exact opposite. Now, this guy's $50,000 shares did turn into 500,000, and at that point John might have sold and retired himself, because he thought, the last year all I've done is piss everybody off, but for my hard work I'm actually all right. I can retire now, I've got enough money, and I'm a little bit jaded of being the CEO, the president of this company, because all I actually do is manage crises and deliver bad news. Now, the shareholders back in the boardroom, they're just happy because their investment of 150 million has become shy of 1 billion. So they just don't care at all. They're really happy. The fact that hundreds and hundreds of people were made redundant, they don't even care about that. It's just the cost of doing business, and if they didn't do it, somebody else would, and that's their justification. But what I've just explained to you here is, this is what happened in the 80s. It happens today, but and we haven't even slapped on high technology and the productivity savings that high technology brings. So what I'm giving you here is an example of something that is probably the nice version. It does get worse. And I know this is a bit of a negative, and I always like to make a point, offer the negative and offer the positive. But once again, so there's the negative, it's obvious. Technology is also enabling that. But I'm going to insert that human beings are the problem also, and our natural propensity for greed, without even trying. So that's a more philosophical stroke psychology based discussion or reasoning. So I need to get to the positive to end this video. Now, the positive is, because we are humans, and because we can think, and because we are creative, hopefully world governments and clever people are going to be strong enough to realise that we need some severe policy changes in how we create policy, and that greed and profit are things that just end up in disaster. So we have to become survival predominantly focused. We have to become ecologically, thoughtfully predominant. We have to stop being the Gordon Gekko saying, greed is good. We have to stop being the American dream, or we have to change it. We have to become more modern. Man has to meet this modern world, this technologically advanced modern world we live in. Because if man doesn't come to that conclusion and be that conclusion, we are going to create a machine, an artificial intelligence. We're going to create something that is man-made, that is going to make all these decisions for us. And I'm serious about this. It's going to happen. So right now, on the world political stage, never before has the world needed the right, clever people in the decision-making room. And those people creating policies based on what is best for humanity. Now, I say that, and it's so cliched, and people are going to go, whatever, Stephen. You know, we're aware of this. But I'm going to say, you are not aware of this, and that is not happening. What I'm going to say is that greed, utter greed, is increasing. It's getting worse. It's not getting better. I mean, you know, one other illustration of this are all these super yachts that are being seized by Ukraine's allies around the world, and that they all belong, well, the ones that are seized are owned by oligarchs, Russian billionaires. All these people own the infrastructure of Russia. And most of these people never even built the infrastructure, they just took it by force. And I've always used offshore banks and super yachts as the, if you wanted to know who runs the world, all you would need is a spreadsheet with that information on, and you'd actually be able to identify who are the people that control all the knobs and levers. And it is true. Anyway, let's go back to this positive. So the positive that the layman can do is the search for truth, the search for awareness, the search for, it's truth. All we need is truth, because truth will actually enable us to see all the moving parts, and in that process itself, the right decisions are more likely to be made. Without the truth, all you have is hidden agenda, and the decision makers will always bias their self-interest, and it's as simple as that. And I suppose that is a great point to end this video. So let's go back to that. Truth itself is the process that should itself arrive at the best decision making. Because without truth, all that happens is that hidden agenda and self-interest prevails. And it's as simple as that. What we need is more truth. And at that, I'm going to say ciao. Now, if you've got this far, if you've watched this video, I thank you so much. I hope that it is of interest to someone. And I know that I can improve this stuff. Anyway, this is a long one, I'm aware of that. I hope it's of use to someone. And I will say goodbye for now and see you all again.